Let's take what we've learned about lighting and imagine putting it to use on a scene. To do that, we have to go through four basic steps: perception, placement, provision, and picture. The first step, perception, is where do you think the light is coming from? We have to understand where we think the light is coming from in a way of justifying it so the audience believes what they're seeing. So in order to do this, we have to figure out where the scene is taking place, whether it's interior or exterior. And then we have to justify the light that's lighting that scene so the audience believes it. So that if it's interior, the light come through the window from the outside, or come from an overhead light like a neon light, or from a practical light like a lamp, or from a prop like a flashlight. But if it's exterior, the audience is going to wonder if the light's coming from the sun, or from a window inside the house, or from the moon, which is a reflection of the sun, or from a street light, a headlight, or another prop like a match. These are all used to give us an idea where the light's coming from. We have to believe that if the light looks red, it's coming from a match. If the light looks cold, it's coming from the sun. In painting, we do this by mixing the pigments so that it's lighter or darker. In movies, it's how we dial in the color temperature. The second thing we have to think of is placement. Once we've figured out the color temperature of the light, where it's coming from, then we have to place our main object of interest in that light, and we have to figure out whether we want to do a key light to make the shadows broader, or we want to put the fill light in to soften it for a different kind of movie. And we have to figure out whether we need to see the face of our figure or not. So the placement of the light might be right in the frame so we can see our actor, or it might be off to the side so we can get longer shadows. In our technique in painting, we have vanishing points and framing to allow where we focus our interest in looking through the light. In the movies, we have what we talked about earlier in three-point lighting. We have to think of foot candles, how intense light is, and we have to figure out which light we're going to use. It's a key light, which we'll only use if we want it to be high contrast, or if we're going to add the fill light to lower the contrast. So if we just add the soft fill light without the key light, then it's all going to be soft. It'll be richer or warmer. Whereas if we add the key and the fill and really blast it out, it might be cold and pale. So our choices take place there. And the backlight, the outlining of the image with a glimmer or a glance, that intensity is less and either fills out the picture or makes it very, very subtle. The third thing we need to do is we have to provision the light with electricity. So how do we make it possible to see? Where does the energy come to light our instruments? And we have to procure the light. In painting, it's easy. We dip the bristles in pigment, we mix the color. But in movies, we have to tap a source of electricity, so we have to figure out whether it's coming from generator or wall sockets. We have to figure out loads, and we have to figure out whether we have enough electrical cable to reach our instruments. And our instruments are providing the light. And they can be the color temperature of the sun, they can be HMIs, which are hotter instruments, or they can be tungsten, like redheads and babies. They can be lower wattage, but it depends. It depends whether we're inside or outside, whether we want that light to be sharp or soft. And then we have to figure out, once we get the instruments, what we're going to put them on, what kind of stands, big or short, mambo combo tall stands or junior baby stands. We have to figure that out too. All about procuring the light, a very technologically centered instrumental way of providing it. And then we get more artistic when we aim the light. And that means we either raise it or lower it to get higher or lower intensity, or we narrow it, or we bounce it to spread it and diffuse it. And then after that, once we've aimed the light, we want to shape the light. This is the duty of the grip department. And that means we're really getting specific. We're going to cut it or block it. We're going to put flags to diffuse it. We've got ways of taming it to diffuse it even more. Silks, nets, cucoloruses to give us patterns. All this is to give us the kind of light that will give us the exact mood of the movie. And once we've established all that, we have our picture, the final take before we start shooting, and we get everybody to check in. The first AD says, let's have last looks, and the first AD says, last looks, and the set dresser takes the last looks and makes adjustments just as the prop master does, just as the gaffer does, the key grip, wardrobe, hair, makeup, director of photography, Everybody takes a last look, and then when everybody's done making all the adjustments, the first AD yells places, the actors get in place, and then yells pictures up, which tells everybody else in the set to be quiet. The sound rolls, the camera rolls, and the director yells action, and we're off to the movies here. And we've got here a nice dark background, but very rich, passionate colors, the reds, the yellows, the oranges, very much into the world of romance here with this passionate tone we're setting, as opposed to looking at The Hobbit, where we're in a cave and we got the Gollum. It's a colder light. The Hobbit's whiter. There's less contrast. There are no deep reds, yellows. It's all on the high end of the color spectrum, very pale, very cold. Here in Memory Lane, we're going to make it rich by giving it a kind of golden tinge, meaning that when we're nostalgic, thinking back on memories, we kind of put it in the ormolu frame. Here, to contrast that, not so happy a memory, a scene of conflict, sexual dark journey here, where we've got the object of interest, key light, very little fill light, so that the person who is dominant looks darker and the person who's subordinate is more lit, and establishing conflict right away merely by key light period. Here's Roger Deakins on set looking back towards the light that's ready to be poured on the actors. Here he is adjusting fill light. Fill light bounced off a 4x here, and here he's showing some students a Mole Richardson 1 or 2K, and the student who's appropriately wearing gloves is sliding in scrim, probably a wire net to diffuse the light so it's not as sharp and intense. Here we have not tungsten, but probably HMI lights, which are gas being heated up to a higher light temperature being bounced off a 12x to diffuse the light softly over the scene. You see there are no shadows here, so it's not about key light, it's about really diffusing the light. Whereas this light, which is being bounced off of 4x and 6x, is so fractured, it's not diffused evenly over the scene, which probably means it's more of an action interior scene. And we've got more contrast with the light, so there's probably implied more conflict in the scene. And here, Roger Deakins, he's drawn out the lighting diagram for his electricians, and you can see that he understands perfectly foot candles. You can see as the light spreads, he's got it down into ninths so that the spread of the light is exactly what he wants in that little box in the scene. Here he is on set talking to Ethan and Joel Coen, and look how they're listening to him. He is in control. The lighting is important here. And this is one of my favorite shots. This is from Kurosawa's Rashomon, early 1950s classic. And look, his lighting, this movie is wonderfully lit, is merely bounced off a reflector board on the main actress, and then there's a bounce card behind them, so that there's no direct light. It's all being bounced. It could be just sunlight. Here, to get a real diffuse pattern on this this porch out in the swamp here, we've got two HMIs going through two 4x's to diffuse it. But then behind that, we've got a 12x to make it more diffuse, so it's probably a scene that isn't high conflict, but more probably in the romantic vein. Here we have two big 10 to 20K HMIs outside, color temperature of the sun, pouring light into this building because we can't trust the sun to keep evenly lit throughout the scene. We need something that's steadier. And then big on these big Roadrunner stands here, and electricians standing around making sure everything's taking place. Opposite during the night, although we're still using HMIs, we want to diffuse that light coming through the window because we want to make it moonlight. Now, although moonlight is the color of the sun, here we diffuse it so we soften it, so it's more romantic. And we're doing the same thing these other gentlemen did in the preceding shot, but we've just put the lights closer to the windows and diffused it with our silks. Here on the set, we have a simple scene, someone walking up to an apartment, but look how much work goes into that. With the lights bounced off a 12x and a 4x card, they're cutting some light in the background. All this just so someone can walk 10 paces. It's laborious, but when it's finally done, it's beautiful.